Don't breathe too hard, Mrs. Langford, Elena whispered, her trembling hand pressing tightly over her mistress's lips just as the doorknob rattled. Outside, the silhouette of Daniel, the charming young husband of the tech millionaire, moved down the pitch-dark hallway. Beyond the walls, storm rain poured over Seattle. City lights went black, and the generator growled like a beast waiting to strike. Victoria, the woman once revered across Silicon Valley, was shaking, not from the blackout, but from the gnawing suspicion eroding her faith in her marriage. Elena had heard it clearly. Tonight was meant to look like a natural accident. But how could a young housekeeper convince her proud mistress that the man bringing tea was the same one holding the knife? And if they spoke a word, would there be enough time left to see the dawn? The doorknob rattled, the scrape of metal drilling straight into the marrow. Elena pressed her hand tighter against Victoria's lips, forcing her mistress to sit frozen in the leather chair. Their breaths mingled, hot with the taste of dread. Outside, the hallway lay in darkness, lit only by a strip of glow spilling from the living room, where the generator pounded like a war drum. Victoria Langford, the tech millionaire once hailed by magazines as the startup queen of Seattle, had never felt so small. In this luxury lakeside wooden home, she was supposed to be the one in control. Polished office, silver laptop neatly placed, awards framed on the wall. But now, power was nothing more than a shell. Inside, her heart thrashed wildly, trembling like any woman faced with a danger her reason dared not name. Elena, the 20-something Latina housekeeper, held her hand firm enough that her knuckles turned white. In her head echoed the words she had overheard minutes earlier. Daniel's voice, soft over the phone. Just tonight, no one left. A natural accident, no one will suspect. The words clung to her memory like an oil stain. Footsteps halted right outside the door. Wood creaked under the weight of polished leather shoes. Elena strained her ears, catching the man's measured breathing, patient, controlled. She pressed harder. Pain flared where Victoria's nails had raked her palm, but she didn't pull back. Silence was all that mattered. A flash split the window, revealing Victoria's face beneath the muffling hand. Her eyes were wide, gray-blue, reflecting the storm. She squirmed, but Elena shook her head, eyes dark and firm. No! Buddy the golden retriever whimpered under the stairs, a muffled alarm bell. He knew something was wrong. He always knew before people did. Then, the rattling at the knob stopped. Darkness swallowed the hallway again. A heavy breath lingered, long and deliberate, as if Daniel were measuring their reaction. Elena held her lungs still, heart pounding so violently she feared the sound itself would give them away. Suddenly the footsteps shifted. Shoes moved off, slowly, deliberately, as if he had all night. Elena lowered her hand at last, her arm trembling, Victoria's bite mark still searing on her skin. Victoria inhaled sharply, then sprang upright, her face split between fury and shock. Her eyes demanded, "How dare you?" But Elena didn't let her speak. She whispered, voice raw, "He wants you silent. Forever." Outside, the wind tore at the porch roof, making the wooden house shudder. The desk lamp flickered, sickly yellow light dancing across the walls like mocking shadows. Victoria folded her arms, trying to rebuild her proud armor. But Elena could see it, her hands were trembling with every beat. In Seattle, where data and startups wrote destiny, Victoria had once believed herself immune to fear. But tonight, in a house cut off by storm, she was only human, and truth was knocking harder with every moment. Elena clenched her bleeding palm, the iron tang mingling with the damp air. In her chest, steel resolve rose. Her mistress had to believe. Because if she didn't, by morning, there would be no one left to believe at all. A strange screech rang from the porch, long, metal, scraping metal. Elena knew instantly it wasn't the wind. Someone was tampering with the generator, and this time, it wasn't just the doorknob. My dear audience, pause for a moment, take a sip of water, then keep listening to the gripping story ahead. Drop a 1 in the comments if you're enjoying this. And don't forget to hit subscribe. The sound from the porch dragged on, then faded, leaving the room heavy like a prison without bars. Victoria shot to her feet, arms crossed tight, eyes blazing more with fury than fear. The tech millionaire mistress who once made investors bow their heads in the boardroom now turned all her anger on the young housekeeper. "Elena, have you lost your mind?" Her voice was hoarse but sharp as a blade. "I gave you this job, this roof, and now you stand here, blood on your hands, spinning some farce about my husband?" Elena didn't answer. She pressed her bleeding hand against her apron, shoulders straight, gaze urgent. She couldn't say much, words would only fuel Victoria's prideful defenses. In the jaundiced light, her mistress's face was rigid, every line etched in denial. Victoria paced the room, heels tapping against the gleaming wood floor, each step a fresh indictment. "You think I'd believe a housekeeper? A girl who scrubs dishes, mops floors, and imagines she understands my husband better than I do? Ridiculous." Elena closed her eyes a moment, steadying the sting of the bite on her hand. Memories surged back. The time she stayed silent in the Yakima slums, when cops came and went, when truth drowned under mocking laughter. Not this time. This time, silence would not kill again. Outside, the wind slammed the glass, curtains whipping wild. The wooden house groaned under the storm's weight. Buddy howled long and mournful from beneath the stairs, his cry echoing through the home like a warning bell. Victoria flinched, but clutched the leather chair, chin high, as if contempt alone could crush her fear. "He's the one who stood by me when no one believed in this company," Victoria burst out, voice trembling with pride and defiance. "Daniel carried the empire while I faced the press, the shareholders, the vultures trying to steal what was mine. And you." Her eyes cut down to Elena's apron, the blood speckling the fabric. "What do you know beyond scrubbing stains?" The insult sliced the air, but Elena didn't flinch. She lifted her chin, dark eyes catching the lamp's glow. Her voice was low, rough, but steady. "I know the sound of despair when it leaks from a man's mouth. I heard him, ma'am. Tonight isn't about stains, it's about survival." Silence stretched taut as a wire. Victoria faltered, breath uneven, then let out a bitter, rasping laugh sharper than the storm's howl. She drew a slim cigarette from a silver case, flicked the lighter. Smoke coiled toward the ceiling, acrid in the damp, storm-thick air. "You know what, Elena?" Victoria exhaled, eyes narrowed with fury. "The only dangerous thing in this house is you and your delusions." Elena's nails dug into her palm, but instead of arguing, she stayed quiet. Silence, once her shackle, was now her weapon. She let the storm outside howl her answer. Suddenly, Buddy erupted in furious barking, the sound rattling the stairs. Claws scraped, then a crash echoed from the porch. Both women jolted. Victoria dropped her cigarette, embers singeing the wool rug. She scrambled to stamp it out, hands shaking. Elena's eyes burned into her. "If you won't believe me, at least believe your own dog." Victoria looked up, and for the first time, doubt flickered. Pride cracked, just a hairline fracture in her concrete wall. She opened her mouth to object, but the generator outside roared, heavy and drawn out, like the breath of some beast. The whole house shuddered. Elena caught the shift instantly. The exhaust no longer vented outward. It funneled straight into the basement door. A cold spike ran her spine. She locked eyes with Victoria, voice raw but firm. "He doesn't need a knife. He's turning this house itself into a weapon." And before we continue the heart of this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like this video. Oh, and drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. We'd love to know. The sickly yellow light from the generator spilled through the window, sketching wavering streaks across the wooden floor. In that flicker, Daniel Langford's shadow stretched long and sharp on the wall, like a blade. He strolled casually through the living room, bourbon glass in hand, looking impossibly at ease. Through the crack of the door, Victoria caught sight of him, and for an instant, she nearly believed she had overreacted. The man looked too refined, too too normal to be a murderer. Broad shoulders wrapped in a cashmere sweater, stepson hurried, a faint hum on his lips like any husband idling through a stormy night. But Elena wasn't fooled. She pressed close to the frame, eyes locked on his silhouette. She had heard, she had known. That calm veneer wasn't safety. It was a mask, honed to perfection. The generator roared, wind whistled through the seams of the wood. The house itself was a cage, and inside it, two women trapped with a beast wearing human skin. Elena edged back, the sting in her torn palm keeping her sharp. Victoria lit another cigarette with trembling hands. Smoke curled upward in the flicker, veiling her pale face in a thin gray haze. She tried to swallow fear with nicotine, but her breath still rattled like a broken drumbeat. "Listen," Elena whispered, pointing toward Buddy. The golden retriever stood rigid under the stairs, fur bristling, growls rolling deep. He had never been like this before. In his eyes burned nothing but warning. Victoria turned away from that gaze, back to Daniel's shadow in the living room. He sank into a leather armchair, set the bourbon on the table, and pressed a finger to the piano keys. A single note shrieked, high and piercing, slicing down the hallway like a knife through the dark. Elena froze, spine pressed against the door. That sound wasn't random. It was a signal, a reminder that he knew, that he was listening. Victoria gasped, lips quivering. Her gray-blue eyes flickered, pride cracking to reveal something raw, more primal, fear. Elena nodded slowly, whispering, "That's the mask, and it's starting to crack." A bolt of lightning flashed outside, bleaching the room in white for an instant. In that glare, Elena saw his face, clearly Daniel, looking up from the chair. His eyes, cold and bottomless, clashed with a smile stretched across his lips. Then, the dark swallowed everything again. The generator faltered, growled low against the floorboards. Victoria bit her lip, trembling. She didn't speak, but her eyes asked the question Elena could hear as if aloud. "If you're right, what can I do?" Elena drew a breath, pressing her bloody hand tight. A plan was forming. But before she could voice it, another sound came, the steady tread of Daniel's footsteps shifting, moving down the hallway, slow, deliberate, like a hunter checking his trap. Buddy barked violently, the sound rattling through the house. Daniel stopped. A silence, razor thin, fell over them. Then a chuckle floated back, quiet but sharp as glass. Victoria clapped a hand over her mouth, eyes wide, fingers trembling. Elena gripped her shoulders tight, leaning in to whisper, barely audible, "He wants us to believe he's harmless. But the mask is gone now. Every step he takes is to kill." Outside, the generator roared again, and in the stillness after the thunder came the creak of the basement window sliding open. The creak of the basement window echoed through the storm, a reminder that the trap was open. Elena edged back, pulling Victoria away from the desk where the generator's glow spilled through. The mistress tried to keep her spine straight, but her heels slipped slightly on the rug, betraying the tremor running through her body. In the hallway, Daniel's footsteps returned, steady, measured, like the ticking of a metronome. He stopped right outside the study door. The knob twisted again, this time firmer, more persistent. The lock groaned in its socket, shuddering as if about to snap. Then his voice came warm, honeyed each word dripping through the crack like liquid sugar. "Margaret." "No, Victoria. You're still awake? I brought you some chamomile tea. Your favorite. It'll help you sleep." Victoria froze, her lips parted, instinct urging her to answer. For years, that voice had been the lifeline pulling her through sleepless nights and brutal meetings. It was sweet enough to deceive even her own memories. But Elena pressed her bleeding hand against Victoria's arm, squeezing tight, shaking her head. Her eyes burned with urgency. "Don't speak." Outside, Daniel went on, his tone softer, intimate enough to chill the skin. "You've been working too hard. Everyone can see you're exhausted. No one would be surprised if you just slipped away. Elena swallowed hard, each word cut like a knife, but also like a gift from heaven. She slipped Victoria's phone from the charger, swiped fast, opened the recorder. A red dot glowed, tiny but fierce, a torch in the hands of the desperate. Victoria glanced down, shock flickering in her eyes, but she didn't stop her. Denial inside her was cracking. Evidence, even just a voice, was prying through, like a needle splitting fabric. The knob twisted again. Daniel tapped gently, a lover's rhythm. "Open up for me, Vic. I'm worried about you." Buddy growled under the stairs, his smart collar buzzing faintly as the camera captured the scene. Elena's eyes flicked to the tiny green LED flashing proof they weren't completely alone. Victoria clapped both hands over her mouth, tears sliding, her body quaking. Truth wrapped tight around her, suffocating, like the heavy fumes from the generator outside. A lightning bolt ripped the sky, flooding the window with light. Through the pane, Daniel's figure was clear, standing tall, silver tray in hand, steam curling from a porcelain cup. The perfect picture, a husband caring for his wife. But in those deep, dark eyes, Elena saw something else, the patience of a predator. He paused, listening. The silence in the room conspired with him, as if the house itself held its breath. Then he chuckled softly, a laugh that never touched his eyes. "All right. If you need rest, we'll talk in the morning. Don't push yourself too hard, Vic. Everyone can see you're drained." The words trailed off, fading with his footsteps down the hall. The master bedroom door closed with a groan, the sound thudding in both women's chests like a temporary reprieve. Elena slowly stopped the recording, saved the file. Her hands trembled, but her eyes gleamed. "You heard it," she whispered. "Not just from me." His own words. Victoria didn't reply. She collapsed into the chair, face ashen, hands still shaking. Smoke from the half-crushed cigarette curled upward, mingling with the phantom scent of chamomile that seemed to linger in the hall. In the jaundiced room, truth hung heavy, immovable as stone. And for the first time, Victoria no longer looked at Elena as something beneath her. She looked at her as a witness, a mirror, reflecting the darkness she could no longer deny. From under the stairs, Buddy suddenly erupted in wild barking, then cut off with a pitiful whine. Elena and Victoria locked eyes, terror ripping open the silence. All right, my dear audience, if you're still here and finding this story gripping, drop a 1 in the comments or say, "I'm still here," to let us know you're with us. Buddy's whimper died away, leaving behind a silence so thick it pressed on their chests. Victoria lurched to her feet, the chair screeching across the wooden floor. "Oh God, the dog." Her voice quavered. Elena shot out her hand, blocking her, black eyes blazing. "Don't." Outside, the storm hammered the walls, window panes rattling with each gust. But beneath that noise, Elena caught the steady, droning growl of the generator. It wasn't distant anymore. The heavy hum seeped through every crack, vibrating through the floorboards like the breath of a monster. Her heart thudded as the pieces aligned into one image. The exhaust pipe aimed straight at the basement window. CO gas, silent, scentless, traceless. The perfect natural accident. Victoria staggered to the window, peering through the veil of rain. The jaundiced light from outside cast Daniel's figure against the storm, bending over the generator. He didn't hurry, didn't hide. A husband tending his home in the tempest, an image anyone would praise. He's just... Victoria's voice cracked, the rest dissolving. Because she saw it too, the black iron pipe stretching out, its mouth angled toward the shadowed gap of the basement window. Elena stepped close, whispering, "He doesn't need a knife. He wants you to die sitting in your chair, looking tired. By morning, everyone will believe it." Victoria clutched the window frame, red-polished nails digging into wood. For the first time, her pride wasn't armor, it was a weight dragging her down. Her once familiar suspicion shattered, replaced by naked horror. Elena glanced at the phone. The earlier recording still glowed, the waveform flat. She tapped the screen, her pulse racing so hard her hand shook. "We need more," she whispered. "We need him to say enough. Enough that no one can deny it." Victoria spun on her, voice breaking. "You're insane. Sitting here breathing his air, waiting for him to confess? This isn't a game, this is my life." Elena didn't argue, she simply pressed a finger to the glowing red dot, eyes sharp as blades. Better insane than dead in silence. Outside, Daniel's footsteps echoed again, no longer leisurely, but slower. Heavier, each one measured, counted, as though he were pacing the distance. Buddy no longer barked. That absence rang louder than any noise, like a sentence passed. Victoria shrank back, spine against the wall. She had never felt the vast house close in like this, shrinking into a sealed box. Generator light flickered, casting Daniel's shadow across the curtain, tall, black, oppressive. Elena raised the phone, whispering, "Just one more time. One sentence, and we have him." Victoria looked at her, lips trembling, tears streaming. For a moment she let go of every mask CEO, millionaire, woman of power. All that remained was a human being, teetering between life and death. A knock came soft, 3 taps like a code. Daniel's voice slid through the crack, honey sweet. "Vic, open up. Don't make this harder. You're already spent. I'll take care of you, in the most natural way." The phone screen lit, waveforms spiking. Elena and Victoria locked eyes, breath ragged. Each word, each syllable, coiled like a noose. Then the generator roared louder, and the lights cut out. The room drowned in blackness, nothing left but ragged breaths and the red recording dot, blinking like the last watching eye in the night. In the suffocating dark, only the storm's howl and the blinking red dot on the phone remained. Victoria clutched the arm of the chair, breath jagged. Elena pressed her back to the door, straining for every sound through the wood. Daniel's silence outside was more terrifying than his honeyed words. Then, from the stairs, a noise. Buddy. The dog growled weak, but unyielding before bursting into a bark that was cut short by the sharp clang of metal striking tile. Elena froze. Not an accident. A signal. She crouched, catching the faint green blink from Buddy's smart collar through the crack. The camera still worked. Frame by frame, it was capturing Daniel's figure, prowling the porch, bending to the generator. Victoria stumbled closer, trembling at the tiny screen. There he was, clear under the jaundiced light, Daniel twisting a valve, lips moving. The storm drowned most of it, but a few words slipped through. "No one will ever suspect natural." Elena raised the phone, thumb hitting record on the screen. Each second was another piece of evidence. Victoria clamped a hand over her mouth, eyes wide. All her life she had controlled the story boardrooms, headlines, interviews. Now the real story unspooled before her, merciless and undeniable. Elena whispered, "Do you see now? It's no longer my word. It's his confession." Lightning slashed, the room flashing white. For a heartbeat, Victoria saw her reflection in the glass, ashen, spent, aged a decade. And behind her silhouette, Daniel on the porch, steady, cold-eyed with a fleeting smile, as though he knew someone was watching. Darkness swallowed it again. Victoria collapsed into the chair, clutching her head. God, he really... Her voice cracked, half believing, half resisting. Elena knelt before her, bloody hand on Victoria's knee. "Let silence save you. Tonight we don't need to scream. We just need to wait." Victoria shook her head violently. "Wait? In my own house? With my dog down there?" Her voice broke. "You want me to sit here while he kills everything piece by piece?" Elena bit her lip, pain flashing in her eyes. She wanted to run, to save Buddy, to hurl herself at the predator outside. But instinct screamed. That was exactly what he wanted. Wind tore over the roof. Daniel's footsteps returned measured, deliberate. The soundtrack of a play where he was the director. He tapped the basement door 3 times. Then silence. Buddy's howl rose long, strangled and cut off. Victoria surged to her feet, tears streaming. No, I can't let him die for me. She lunged toward the door, but Elena blocked her, small arms unyielding. He's testing you, Elena hissed. If you open it, it ends here. 2 women faced each other in the dark, breaths colliding, eyes locked like drawn blades, pride and anguish on one side, desperation and resolve on the other. And then, through the floorboards, they heard it. Daniel's low laugh drifting up from the basement, steady and hollow, like the beat of a funeral drum. Both women went rigid. That laugh wasn't a husband's. It was the sound of a hunter already certain of his prize. That night felt stretched by unseen hands, every second dragging heavy and cruel. In the suffocating office, the breaths of 2 women collided, weaving an invisible fog across the room. Outside, the storm had weakened, but the hiss of wind and pounding rain still beat like a funeral drum. Elena sat with her back pressed to the door, her whole body strung taut like a bow. Her bloodied hand clutched the phone, its dim screen glowing, the recording app showing jagged waves. Each spike was a shard of proof, the only weapon against the man on the other side. Victoria sat across from her, shoulders slumped, eyes raw and swollen. She had once faced the harshest boards, the fiercest critics. But never had she sat in her own home, preparing to resist a man the whole world trusted without question. A faint crack in the hallway froze them both. Then, like a deadly refrain, Daniel's footsteps returned. Slow, steady, each step striking the wood like the ticking of a countdown clock. The doorknob turned softly, metal groaning. Elena pressed harder against it, her small body the last barrier. Daniel's voice seeped through, smooth as velvet. Vic, I know you're awake. The night is long. Don't torture yourself anymore. Just open the door, and it all ends. Victoria squeezed her eyes shut, her body trembling. For years, that voice had been her comfort. Now it was sugar-wrapped poison. Elena tilted her head, whispering so faint her breath shook. Don't. Daniel paused a beat, then continued, lower, sweeter, chilling. You've worked your whole life, worn yourself out. Everyone sees it. If tonight you slip away, the city will mourn. I'll mourn. And no one will ever question it, Vic. Not a soul. The phone's screen flared, sound waves spiking. Elena clenched her jaw, heart hammering like it might burst. This was it. The moment. Proof no one could deny. In the leather chair, Victoria buried her face in her hands, tears streaming. She had heard it, clear as day. No more denial. Her millionaire husband had painted her death like a eulogy dressed in silk. In the hall, silence spread. Then, suddenly, Daniel chuckled. A short, steady laugh, cold as a blade. The doorknob released, his footsteps retreating. Each groan of the wood rang like a coffin lid closing. Silence reclaimed the room. Victoria broke sobbing, her choked cries weaving with the storm outside. Shaking, she whispered, Dear God, he really did. Elena moved closer and knelt before her mistress. Blood seeped from the bite on her hand, the wound burning. But her voice was steady. We have him now. We just need to survive until morning. That's all. The wall clock struck 5 times. 5 a.m. Outside the window, the storm was fading, the rain reduced to a drizzle, and the first pale beam of light sliced into the darkness. Victoria lifted her gaze, eyes fixed on the slit in the curtain where the light came through. Morning, she gasped, her voice trembling with disbelief. We survived? Elena gave a slight nod, but her eyes remained tense. Her instincts whispered. The beast hadn't given up. And then the proof appeared. From downstairs came the sound of the piano. Slow, heavy, each note drawn out, dragging through the air like funeral bells. Victoria froze, her hand gripping the armrest, nails digging into the wood. Elena stood rigid, her heart tightening with every beat. Daniel was playing, calm, confident, as if the night before had been nothing but a dream. The melody spread through the house, painting a false picture, a man enjoying music at dawn while his wife rested safely upstairs. A scene anyone would believe, but Elena knew. Victoria knew. Those notes were not for pleasure. They were a message, a reminder. It wasn't over. The game had only just begun. Victoria turned to Elena, eyes red and trembling, and whispered, "If he keeps going, what then?" Elena clenched the phone, her thumb resting on the audio file. The glow of the screen reflected in her eyes like a blade. "Then we'll make the whole world hear the truth." The piano kept playing, dawn spilled in, but inside that millionaire's mansion the darkness had not lifted. Morning had come, yet within those walls, the truth was still bound in silence. Elena and Victoria had survived a nightmarish ordeal, with evidence in hand, the recording that exposed Daniel's true face. But would that be enough to protect them, when outside the entire city still admired the elegant man? Last night, Victoria lost something greater than safety, the blind faith she had built around her marriage. And Elena, the scorned housemaid, had become her only ally in this fight for survival. Two women from different worlds, now bound by the same deadly secret. The greatest question still hung in the air. Could they step beyond that door to seek justice, or would Daniel's eyes and smile continue to turn the world against them? Behind the polished mask of charm, one truth was clear. Power doesn't always protect you. Sometimes, it's the sweet prison that traps you inside. The lesson of this night is simple. The truth can be denied, but it cannot be killed. It will find a way to speak through words, through glances, or through a trembling recording in the dark. And this is only the beginning. Because as the night fades, the real battle begins with the light of day. If you felt the tension and shared in Victoria and Elena's fear, leave a comment below and let us know. Do you think they can escape Daniel? Share this video because someone near you may also be living behind a mask that seems perfect.